man on the run, riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
All right, guys. Hey, Crappie Connection back in the saddle again down here at Grizzly Jig Show 2020.
Yep.
Got myself Justin Berry,
Brad Chapel.
and we got a what do you call it? Texan down there? Is that what they call you?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm a Texan.
Texan. We got Tommy Ezell. Is that how I pronounce it right?
Absolutely.
Tommy Ezell from Rockwall, Texas, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to talk to us a little bit about post-spawn crappie. If you've never been to Texas, he's going to give us a full rundown of what to bring, maybe what to look for, what to fish for, and go from
lakes.
there. Yeah,
Some lakes to go to.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So post-spawn, where do you like to fish at, Tommy? And just go in from there.
Man, there's various lakes that I target. I live in Rockwall, Texas, so I move around. I stay with about two and a half hours of Dallas, and I fish all those lakes. I say,
If you had to pick one right now and say, hey, which one would you go to?
Lake Palestine.
All right.
Palestine.
Lake Palestine. It's about an hour and a half from me, and as I was talking to you guys a little bit about that, that lake has docks, cattails, it has trees, it has river channel. However you want to catch them, it's a really good lake. I love it. You can catch them any way you can think of. So anybody from out of state that wants to come fish, they don't have to change up their techniques to catch fish on that lake. So
that's a good lake then, huh?
Yeah, that would be the one that I would choose to tell people about, because there's so many various ways of catching those crappie.
You have what's the size of that lake?
Oh goodness! I mean, it's a
Let me
big
Google
one.
it real quick.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a big lake. It has 2 or 3 arms on it. All of them are good. They got big river channels that run through them.
Yeah.
It gets pretty shallow. It can get stumpy when you get up into those in some of those areas, so you need to be careful. But for those that they don't like getting up into those stumps, that river channel goes through. It's got a bowl, doesn't have a lot of wood in it. You can spider rig it. It's an absolute wonderful fishery. You can catch anywhere from £1.25 fish to, I see buddies out there catching 3-pounders in that lake.
It's
They got some
18
threes.
miles long and 135 miles of shoreline. The widest part of the lake is 4 miles across. My gosh.
Yeah,
good
it's,
lake, man.
oh,
I
it's,
bet you
it's-
get some wind down there and get some rollers, huh?
No, yeah, but there's places to hide on that lake too. So, you can push up and fish deep docks. In those situations, no matter what, even if the wind's up, there's places you can go fish. So that's one of the reasons I like that lake.
So you pronounce it Palestine? I usually pronounce stuff. Ain't there Palestine, Texas?
Yeah, there is. But
Is it?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a wonderful fishery.
What would be, let's say, 3 top colors for Palestine to come over there and actually...
Oh man, so that's a good one. I was fishing, I guess it was about 3 years ago for the pre-fishing for the Texas State Championship, and I had a buddy of mine. He's also with Bonehead Tackle, but his name's William Oliver, and he called me up and he says, "Hey man, you own them?" I said, "Man, I'm on them." He goes, "Well, you must be fishing a paradise color, which is an orange body with a chartreuse tail." And I never fish an orange body ever. I fish an orange head, but I just never fish an orange body. And so I thought I was on them. And he, "Well, you ain't on them then, boy." So I go back. The next day, and I got that paradise. I wasn't on them. So paradise is a real good color, which is it's an orange body with a chartreuse tail. We have a color that's a blue color, and it's got a chartreuse tail. We actually call that Palestine Special. That's a good color. I don't vary from silver shad much, which is it's a sparkly, it's a glittery body
Right.
with a chartreuse tail. I'd say 85, most of my wins, plaques, trophies came from that color, and everybody knows it. So a lot of guys fish that one as well. But those would be the ones that I usually fish.
They need to put in their boat then.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Any Texas lake you want to come to, you want that silver shad, you want something with some sparkle in it, and you also bluegrass. Bluegrass is another good one. If I had to fish 4 lakes or 4 tournaments in 4 lakes, and they said you could pick 2 colors, that's what I'm using, bluegrass or silver shad.
Do you get to the detail level that you want to use a particular color head, or do you really care about the head color?
I don't. I try to contrast those. You know, if I got a bluegrass on, I'm going to use like an orange head, and then that silver shad. You know, it's kind of like my white and chartreuse. So I'll put a darker head on that just to get the contrast a little different. That's all I do with it. I don't pay much attention to it. I use a lot of rattles, stuff like that. That's kind of where I go.
Use a lot of rattles?
I do. I use a lot of rattles.
Huh.
Yeah.
So as far as like, for instance, say me and Brad wants to just jump in the truck and go down there to that lake. As far as, I mean, Texas is known as pretty much single pole fishing. I would say as an outcast there because I haven't been there. What's your whole style rig? Pole, line, all that good stuff. What would I need to rig up for? From your expertise? Well,
you know, we hammer those lakes pretty good, and those bigger fish, I don't care what anybody says, they get smart. You know, you got to get down on them. We've all talked about that. When you see them, you got to get down on them fast before they realize you're there. So I'm using heavier jig heads right now.
How heavy?
I've used 1/4 ounce for the last 4 months. 4 months.
And how deep of water are you dropping down to?
Well, that's a funny thing. This winter, I haven't seen too many people doing it, and I didn't have to do it, but I wanted to learn with that Garmin how deep I could catch those fish. And I was catching fish down. I was seeing and targeting fish as deep as 45 foot.
Wow.
God.
Yeah, I was running those river channels. In Lake of the Pines, I fished Lake of the Pines a lot this winter. I wasn't fishing more than 35 foot there, but you get over on the Bob Sandlin, and that timber's real deep. And then also on Fork, it can get real deep. And those fish, for a few weeks, they pushed real deep, and it was fun.
So what size rod? I mean, get down to the rod, the line on that part.
Well, it's tough. In the past, I fished a 7, you know, because I was utilizing downscan and side scan on my trolling motor before this Garmin. So you had to get up and you had to sweep those trees. So a long rod wasn't important to me. I was using 7s and 8s. And then once we got that Garmin, of course, when I pulled up on those other fish with the DI, I found out that I was I knew I was spooking a lot, but I didn't realize how many I was spooking. So I've gone to a 10 and a 12, and that's all I'm fishing right now. That's because, you know, we were spooking those fish. And, of course, I don't have to get up and sweep them anymore with that Garmin. And then, of course, I use braid no matter what.
What pound test?
I use the 12-pound bonehead braid that we have. But it has a strength of a 20-pound, and then I'll use a 15-pound fluorocarbon leader. And
you use a leader?
Oh yeah, I use a leader, and I never used a leader before. I only used a leader during fall before the Garmin, and the only reason I use a leader 24/7 now is because I use a sliding weight system that's on that, and I like it sliding on that fluorocarbon rather than braid. So
do you use a 2-way swivel, or do you tie it on direct?
No, I tie it on direct.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
What kind of knot are you using on your jig head?
I use a polymer knot. I use a loop knot sometimes when I'm fishing shallower water because I tie some things above my jig head, and when I start playing with the rattles, and I use loose willow leaf blades and stuff like that that'll tink the head. You know, they got that lateral line for a reason.
Right.
And you know, people ask me, they say, "What color do you prefer in muddy water?" I don't prefer a certain color. I stay with the colors that I use, but I start playing with rattles at that point. When I get in that real deep water or that muddy water, I play with a lot of rattles.
What about glow baits?
I hadn't really tried any. I hadn't tried any glow baits. I'm at the point where if it isn't broke, don't fix it. So I don't vary a whole lot with a lot of new products. I've been successful. I feel like I've been successful with the ones that I'm using now. So I don't vary a whole lot.
What about the water? Like with the water clarity down in Dallas, the whole Dallas area, is it all pretty much the same in all the lakes?
No, I mean,
like as far as Lake Palestine, that's how you say it.
They're all stained. They're all stained to some degree. There's not a lot of clear water. You start getting out west, you'll run into some of that clear water. That's one of the reasons we had some issues, which I shouldn't be bringing it up again in Hamilton. Is we don't see much clear water. So us Texas guys got up there and we struggled with that clear water a bit because we don't see it. some of our lakes get muddy specifically after a rain. For some reason, we have specific lakes that after a hard rain, it gets really, really tough. And then you can go to some other lakes, they muddy up and they get a lot of debris, you know, because our fisheries are made to hold water for our cities. So when it rains hard, it pushes a lot of water into our lakes really, really fast because that's how they're built. So we'll very often, we get some hard rains, there's some lakes that we can go to that aren't as bad. But no, it's not real muddy, but it's good and stained.
What's the timeline for them lakes as far as the spawn and then the post spawn?
Well, that's a funny question. I mean, we're still learning, and I say that because of the Garmin. We're seeing stuff that we never really never saw in the past. I got a gentleman, I mentioned his name a minute ago, William. He'll start catching them over on Lake Palestine. He'll start wading around Valentine's Day. And
You say wading?
Wading.
Well, y'all wade down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he'll have waders on around Valentine's Day smoking big old fish. Yeah.
Shoot, yeah.
We have Highway 20 runs in between Lake Fork and Lake Palestine, and for some reason, it's kind of some kind of crappie fault line. And when you cross it, see, we did a show. He did a show on Lake Palestine, and I did the show, the burst pile fishing show on Lake Fork.
Yeah.
These lakes are 45 minutes. You could drive if you're dragging a boat, it's going to take you an hour, but they're 45 minutes apart, and the patterns were absolutely totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think all these lakes have personalities, and that's one thing, you know, everybody that listens a lot, you can hear me say over and over again, you've got such personalities when it comes to crappie in different lakes. You know, they always have the same natural behaviors, but they actually, when it comes to colors and even areas of the lake, they like postpone better, what have you. But it's personalities. I think the more you fish them, the more that personality comes out.
That's why I fish so many lakes. When people ask me what lake are you fishing? What lake are you fishing? I just look at them. I don't even understand that question. And then, you know, having this opportunity to talk to so many fishermen at the Grizzly Show, most of them are stuck on one lake, and it just surprises me. Because if you go out and you fish all these different fisheries, just how we just talked about Lake Palestine and Lake Fork being 45 minutes apart, and they have a lot of the same cover structure, this, that, and other, but they fish a lot different.
Yeah.
And if you'll take the time to go out and fish these different fisheries, it makes you a much better fisherman.
What about, we're going to bring in the Garmin Live Scope, because that is the hottest thing in crappie
Hot
fishing.
product.
For sure. Yeah. What is one of the things that you've seen with the Live Scope that you didn't know before?
Good question, Brad.
We speculated a lot on different things. We thought we knew, and I was talking to you guys about this a moment ago, and I talked about this in some of my seminars during spring. We all, those old guys, all these years, those old guys said those big fish spawn out in the middle of the lake in them trees. I never pushed up to the shoreline all spring last year.
Right.
I fished anywhere from 20 to 40 foot of water on timber in the middle of the lake all through spring. It was absolutely amazing. If you could find a tree that was catching sunlight, 6 to 8 foot of water. I mean, I wasn't fishing that deep, but I was out there that deep. I was fishing 6 to 8 foot down, and female after big female. Of course, we were putting them back, but my God, it was fun. That's one of the things, the fish bite more than once. Absolutely. Will they? Sometimes they won't, but some of them will. Those big fish, they'll strike it 3 times. Sometimes they won't strike it 1 time.
Right, and they just leave you.
But yeah, I mean, we're seeing all kinds of different things that those rules of thumb are out the window. When we did the show, Russ and I kept telling Russ, I said, don't drop below those big fish. And there was a couple of times that he did, and those fish went just straight down and just whacked that bait. So I'm at the point where I think out of the box. I won a tournament back in 2015. I'm semi-green. I've been doing this for about 7 years. And when I won that tournament, we're fishing against spider riggers on Lake of the Pines. And I did good. I only caught 11 fish, but I ended up I set the club record. And since then, nobody shared with me. And back then, I thought to myself, I was like, well, darn, why won't anybody share with me? What was a blessing? Looking back now, it was a blessing because I got to go out there and do my own thing and learn my own stuff. I have no preconceived notions in my head. I just got out there and learned. So it was kind of a blessing.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
What kind of post spawn size is down there? I mean, after the spawn,
There's
summertime.
Still,
I mean, how what's a good average down there? I mean, what can somebody outside the box look at? They plan to travel to Texas.
I mean, you can go down there and catch what you want. Just depends on what your goals are. I caught 2 pound plus crappie year round down there. You know, you can still target 2 pound plus crappie. You can go sit on schools. That's kind of one of the things I talked about during my seminars was depends on what your goals are. And, you know, the biggest obstacle that we have on the water is time management, right? Mm-hmm. And I talked to everyone about that, and, you know, I got them to raise their hand. I said, who likes to thump? They raised their hand, and I said, if you want to learn things, if you think about time management, it can make you learn all kinds of stuff from rigging to, you know, planning. And they understood that concept for the most part. And then I went one more step, and I said, well, who wants to catch big fish? And they all raised their hand.
Well, yeah.
And I said, well, you got to go back to time management. If you pull up on a school of fish and your goal was to catch big fish that day, and you sit on that school of fish for an hour and a half, you just wasted an hour and a half of time, and you're not going to get your goal. You weren't on those. You're not chasing big fish. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest obstacle that we have as fishermen that want to catch big fish is that we love to feel that thump, and we sit on those schools too long, and we're not learning how to catch big fish. Mm-hmm. That's what I did all winter going through, you know, those big fish lakes. Bob's saying I focus on certain lakes during certain seasons because they fish better, you know. And for instance, my home lakes are Lake Lavon and Lake Ray Hubbard. Mm-hmm. Both those lakes are silted in. You know, they have no river channel. So they're horrible fisheries. Unless you're a spider rigger, you can probably go out there and whack them pretty good. But they spread out in those bowls. As a one-pole fisherman, it's really, really difficult. So I gravitate towards the ones that still have the river channels. And that being said, I'm running those river channels all through winter, and you'll run across school after school after school. I don't fish them at all. I just keep on moving until I see those.
Are you finding that the big fish are away from the large schools of fish?
They absolutely are. Mm-hmm. They absolutely are. And again, when I spoke about the 2015 thing, you know, everybody else was down by the bowl spider rigging those big schools, where I was up in the timber fishing the same depths, but I was fishing timber and I was looking for big fish. Mm-hmm.
What about you? You say you use a lot of rattlers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you tested since your live scope scents or rattlers?
Oh yeah.
Which one?
So
if you had to pick one right now, what would it be?
Scent or rattles?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use the rattles first.
Really?
Scent's just a tool if they're short striking this, that, and the other. I'll keep it on my boat. It works. But I'll give you, for instance, with the rattles, I got a sliding weight system that I use.
Wait, time out. What kind of rattlers do you use for everybody to know?
I use two different rattles. I use a bayou rattle. It's called a sonar ball. And what it is, it's just a bead, and then it has rattles in it.
It goes on your line, isn't that correct?
It does. It goes on your line.
Right.
And I use that more in shallow water for slow fall. It does two things. It's a little bit buoyant, so it has a slow fall to it, and it rattles. Right. So I use that for pitching techniques and, you know, things like that. And then all during winter, I'm basically using those glass beads that you put into a bait. Mm-hmm. So those are those glass. They're kind of like a tube.
Right. And you insert them.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Man, rattlers, huh? Have you used a rattler?
Yeah. Doing what I normally do before I did a lot of vertical jigging and stuff, it really didn't affect me. I played with them some, but I never did see results from it, so I never did develop a confidence into it. And as we all know, if you don't have confidence in something you're doing fishing, you're just wasting your time doing it.
So I noticed my catch rate going up because that's all I do. It's just the way I prefer to fish, so I fish with jigs only, you know. And if they're not biting, I assume that's when people start going to minnows and other things. But I have to figure it out. So what I do, I started playing with the rattles. And I noticed my catch rate going up before Garmin, right? So once I got the Garmin, I started playing with different systems, and there's just different ways of catching those fish. And y'all have all heard about getting your bait down there really fast and people putting drop shots on, this, that, and other. Well, I came up with a sliding weight system, and you had to have beads on the system. So the only beads that I had were those bayou rattles at the time when I was playing with it. So I put these bayou rattles up there by my weights. And I go out to the lake the next day, and what I was doing is I had my boy with me, so we were fishing some brush, and I started pitching a bait out there, and while I'm playing with him and letting him catch fish, I'm paying attention to things with this garment and seeing what's going on. And I pitched a bait out there without a rattle, and it comes floating back in, and these fish never come off this pile. And by the time that bait got there, I got bit, I grabbed another pole with those rattles on it. I tossed it out there, and it was one with the weighted system on it. And so my bait's 12 inches below this, right? Yep. I pitch it out there, and by the time it gets 3 foot in to that, they heard those rattles start coming off that pile.
Really?
You can see it plain as day.
I'm going to get some rattlers.
Yeah. And then what ended up happening, guess what they did?
What?
They hit my weight with the rattles on it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Time and time again, they hit it. And so I never put those near my weight anymore.
Put them next to the hook.
I put it next
to the business end.
Absolutely.
What's a hidden lake in Texas that you think that hadn't been utilized yet by the crappie fishing world?
It's Toledo Bend. It's absolutely Toledo Bend. It's a huge lake. I think people are scared of it. I myself have been scared of it. And it's just so far away. I haven't fished it, but I think that's one. They're catching a lot of fish over there is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I went there a couple of years ago, and let me tell you, that joker is full of crappie.
Yeah.
From the head to toe. I mean, it literally, I side scanned for probably 15 minutes and marked about 3 brush piles, and each one of them looked like they had a couple hundred crappie sitting on top of them. You're like, man, this place is unreal. And I had a ball down there.
Yeah, my
I would
understanding.
agree with that.
Easy limits over there is what I'm hearing. Some of those guys in those rural areas, they get real tight-lipped. But I mean, if you can go over there and catch limits 1.5 pound crappie,
Oh yeah,
there's some big ones in there.
And to me, the mix that I caught was probably 50-50. About half white and half black. What I picked up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's another really neat thing about Texas is most of our fisheries do have a good abundance. Like Fork, you go to that east arm, you're going to catch a lot of black crappie on the east arm. Mm-hmm. West arm is where a lot of those big whites are. Now, there's big whites on both sides, but you get over you're going to have to go. It's kind of like going through some smaller fish.
Yeah. And
you get over there on that east arm, there's a lot of black crappie, and they're fun to catch. We do a lot of pitching to those.
Right.
And
they just seem so mean to me.
The black crappie?
Oh, yeah.
I like them.
Yeah, they're mean.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
They just jump up like a bass and everything else.
Yeah. My home lake, Lake Ray Hubbard, that's exactly it. It's got a lot of laydowns in it, and they'll get in those laydowns. It's fun. You can spot lock on one end of that laydown and just take kids out there and just pitch down those laydowns. And, when they hit, they head for the dam. Mm-hmm. It's fun. It's absolutely fun.
What about hooks? Hook sizes, hook styles. What do you prefer and why?
I only use sickle hooks. There's various reasons. I think I get a better nose pierce with them. I try to get them in the nose is what I do. I've gone up. Since we're fishing that Garmin, we're fishing just specifically for bigger fish. So I've gone up to some of those bigger hooks. I use big baits. I use 3-inch baits year round. Depending on the lake, I'm going to change up my baits. But if I can get away with it, I'm fishing a 3-inch bait. So that being said, I'm going to need a little bigger hook.
What size hook?
I use 1s and 2s.
1s and 2s?
Yep, I sure do. If I'm using a smaller bait, I go down to a number 4. But that's primarily what I'm using. Big old sickle hooks.
You'd be surprised you talk all these guys and they're like sickle hooks or the regular hooks. Just
I think
whatever
when it comes
preference is.
In my experience with sickle hook compared to a Aberdeen style hook, it depends if you're going to tip it with a minnow or not.
That's exactly what I was going to say. A lot of them won't admit it, but that's why they go towards those J hooks because they got a big barb on them that's going to hold that minnow on, and I just don't need it. So a lot of guys don't like how sharp those sickle hooks are too.
Right.
And I love them. I want them sharp. I want them piercing that nose.
I had something funny happen to me at my house this past week.
What?
We come back from Oklahoma show.
Yeah.
And
oh, I know what you're going to say.
My wife calls me in there, and somebody gave me a pocket full of hooks, and I had them in my pocket. And she washed them. She opens up the dryer, and literally there's 50 hooks inside my dryer. So I had to take 20 minutes. It's totally off subject, but
that's fine. Let her rip.
But I had 40 or 50 hooks inside my dryer. But they were real sharp, and that kind of made it jog a good memory for me.
I did the same thing. I had to tear the freaking dryer apart. Take it apart. It was stuck in there. I had to take the belt off. I almost just bought a new dryer.
I didn't have to go that level, but I had some really good sharp hooks that they loved my dryer and towels. It didn't bother it too much, but man, those towels they ate them up.
Just don't leave nibbles in your pocket. You'll be in trouble then.
Right.
You'll be getting a new dryer.
Yeah.
You got a lot of great lakes down there in Dallas area. Do you have one that you have a bucket list for yourself?
Man, you're only as good as your fisheries. You know, we are blessed down there. There's one that's really close to me that I haven't fished, and I kick myself in the butt all the time about not going to it, and that's Sam Rayburn.
Mm-hmm. Sam Rayburn.
It's another great fishery. It's going to have everything in it. You can fish river channel. It's got it all, and that's one that I don't go to. What's really hard for me is I got Lake Fork an hour away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, Lake of the Pines is just stupid awesome. Bob Sandlin.
That's stupid awesome. That's what I like to hear.
It is. You know, we're really blessed with some wonderful fisheries. There's one other thing that's on my radar is those guys that are down south Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Texas is huge. Mm-hmm. There's lots of lakes.
You talking about Zapata area?
No.
Was that Lake Falcon or something like that?
No, more in that College Station area, down around Austin, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, and then maybe even a little more south. I'm wanting to go down there for the simple fact that those guys aren't hitting those lakes, guys. Now, they're going saltwater fishing. Mm-hmm. When they get the opportunity, they're loading up and going that 2-3 hours, and they're going down to the coast.
So have you already got a birdie in your of what lakes has some big crappie down there, or you just want to go explore?
I don't ask any questions, and that's my biggest downfall. I don't network, and I watch when I do get whooped pretty good. I know why I'm getting whooped is those other guys are networking. That's something I want to try to work on a little more this year. I don't feel comfortable talking or asking questions, this, that, and other.
Mm-hmm.
I love answering them, and I help others all the time, but I never ask. I just figure this stuff out. Just like I told you, you know, I think these guys are going and hitting. I think they're going to hit in the saltwater. I don't think you don't see reports on these lakes.
I think one big misconception in general when it comes to crappie fishing is you only catch them in the spring.
Oh yeah, year round.
I mean, everybody says, well, you know, after March, I kind of lay off of them and I start doing other things, and I just don't think the general public has got the mindset that you can catch crappie 12 months out of the year. There is no season when it comes to crappie fishing.
Yeah. I got my mind swirling about South Texas. I got some employees that live in South Texas, and you talk about them guys, that's all they talk about is going to South Padre Island. They're going around Houston area, and they're going out there saltwater fishing. Do you, you know, we talk about fishing out west of Cali. Do you know for sure, like, if they have crappie down there more south? I mean, I'm sure they do. I mean, do you?
We're blessed in Texas because Texas Park and Wildlife, if somebody turns in a record, they post it. So you can, that's one of the things I do. When I think, okay, I'm going to be in this area, first thing I do is look at Texas Park and Wildlife, see what kind of fish have been turned in up there, to see what kind of fish are in those fisheries.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that recently, and some of those southern lakes got some big fish in them. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
I just want there, as close as that is, I just want there's just a little bit of crappie on the south side of the border there. You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
There are.
You think so?
Falcon. They just go down there and they bass fish. I'm telling you guys, they're untouched. And
Man, that's a new
I'll let y'all know this year.
All right, you gonna travel down there?
Darn right I am.
When you plan on going down there?
Oh, next couple of weeks, I'm going to start hitting a couple of them. I'm blessed to where I got to go visit tackle shops. People think, well, that boy's fishing all the time. Well, what I'm doing is I'm utilizing my time. I'll go, like all the posts that I did on Lake of the Pines, I didn't get to fish it all day. I went and visited a couple tackle shops, had my boat behind me, and I kept 3 or 4 hours where I could go fish. Mm-hmm. And I plan on doing that down south this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need to send us some pictures of how far south. I like to track how far south you go.
Are you hiring?
Yeah.
Sound like John, we could handle fish. We'll let you actually handle the tackle part, and we'll go the fishing part.
That sounds perfect.
Kind of work together.
I don't think that's going to work.
Shoot, yeah. Well, shoot. Is there anything else you want to add before we cut out?
No. You know, I share everything. You guys know that. So if people want to follow me on Facebook and, you know, find me on Instagram, this, that, and other, I answer questions all the time. I'm an open book. You know, I will say, you know, the first 2 years into crappie fishing, I didn't share much, you know, and I self-reflect a lot, and I got thinking, I got to looking, boy, I sure am sharing a lot. What changed? And I figured out that first 2 years, I just wasn't that good of a crappie fisherman. If I shared when somebody was on my spots, I was done. Mm-hmm. You know, I couldn't catch any fish. But now I share, and the reason I share so much is it doesn't hinder my fishing. So I'm an open book. Even after a tournament, I'll share a full report. Doesn't bother me a bit because it doesn't hinder my fishing. I want to share the sport. I want to
Yep.
see it grow.
That's why we have it.
And that's what's going on. It's growing.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, by the time probably we post your episode here, we'll have an answer and how far south you went catching these crappie in South Texas, because I'm really interested in that. I traveled to Laredo here a while back, so I kind of know that area, and I'm very curious on that.
My parents are down on the coast. That's where I grew up saltwater fishing, and there's a couple lakes that are literally 30 minutes from the coast, from the beach,
Mhm.
and I know there's crappie in them. I'm gonna have to watch out for those alligators, but I'll get y'all a report down there.
I'm very, very interested in
We're
that.
leaving it up to Tommy to actually come back and put a comment and some pictures
Yeah.
when we do this video.
Yeah, we'll come back, maybe do another episode on you on them South Texas lakes,
Yeah.
because very interested in that. Brad, anything else you want to add before we shut it
appreciate
down?
your time, Tommy. Looking forward to some fishing reports and
Yeah.
more things to come.
Thank y'all for having me.
All right, guys. Tommy Ezell, everybody. I'm Justin Berry.
Brad Chappell here.
We'll see y'all.
Holla.
About a mile from the big muddy river, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel